everyone. This is Jared RAND, and welcome to the Global Guided Meditation Call for Wednesday, December 4, 2024, a little after 3:15 p.m. Eastern. We're having a time for change call tonight at a little after 9:15 p.m. Eastern. Seems to be some confusion out there about what's up and what's down. Right now, you should be in a comfortable position with no outside interference. Relaxed into the body, as still as a statue. Focused on your breath, rising and falling, which is we call the now. We're in it's almost like a high-speed wind tunnel, and it's blowing at our backs, pushing us forward. And we're in this perpetual high-velocity life. And the high-velocity life is that it goes back to our training and programming influencing over us throughout our lifetime. And instead of looking, over here and over there and at the scenery and everything and the animals, we're focused on getting somewhere. And we're in a real big hurry. And this affects everything across the board. If you get to a point where you don't know, you don't, it doesn't feel like you're rushing, but you're rushing all the time. But you get in the habit of rushing, so you don't know you're rushing. Okay? It's interesting. But so in this life, we rush. And because if you slow down, then the ego mind says guilt. You have guilt. I can't do this. I got to get going. I got to get going. And we don't know why we're rushing. We just rush. How many times have you said you don't have time for this, you don't have time for that? No, I got to get going. I don't have time for that. Where are you going? I have to get going. So you figure that these human bodies are a manifestation of God. Okay? So we definitely should honor it. Much of spiritual work is slowing down enough to let our minds come into harmony with our hearts. As in the Bhagavad Gita, give me your heart, give me your mind and your heart, and you will come to me. It is as if what's really being said, always think of me, always love me, and I will guide your heart and your actions. If as I do, you follow the path of anyone in the spiritual realm, the grace of the Guru, the same applies. Let your love and devotion guide your heart, guide the heart. Let the thinking mind be balanced by the bhakti heart. Being here now, which we do in these meditations, is experiential. So when you're in the moment, when we're in the moment, time slows down. And in this moment, you have all the time in the world. But do not waste a moment. Who you really are is beyond time. And when Jesus said, look, I'm making all things new, it's the same as when you're living in the here and now and you start fresh in every new moment. When you are really in the moment, in this moment, this is all there is. And the moment of death is just another moment. Now, some of us, there are times, or maybe all of us, depending, where we bear the unbearable. It may come as physical pain, illness, emotional suffering of our own, of someone dear to us, or of other sentient beings. The question to ask ourselves is, can you respond to suffering without closing down and still keep your heart open? Now, it seems almost instinctively to use our mind to protect our heart, to rationalize the suffering, to avoid the pain or discomfort. But then we cut ourselves off from true compassion for ourselves and others. Most of us armor our hearts when dealing with the immensity of the suffering that exists in this world. We look at all the people who are starving when we have just finished a big breakfast and we turn away. We feel like there is nothing we can do, and we can't bear to see the suffering. Armoring the heart is the opposite of opening the heart. You know the feeling of loving another being. You know how that love feeds you. Love is how we feed each other. But when we experience overwhelming suffering, we close our heart defensively. Our heart may feel protected and less vulnerable, but it is also deadened in the process. Arming the heart cuts off the living spiritual interchange of energy that exists in this universe and that nourishes the spirit in all of us. Now, I believe that all of us, to a certain extent, fear suffering. People find the world scary because they become overwhelmed by the suffering around them. In their own and everybody else's, in any major city in this country, there are homeless people sleeping in doorways. It's one thing to experience this in India or in Calcutta or other parts of the world. It seems like half the population lives on the street. But in the affluent United States, it's bizarre that some people live so well and some are so poor. It feels like we should be able to get it together enough to provide everybody with at least shelter, food, and clothing. Are we turning away because our minds are closing off our hearts to the suffering of others? Now, I receive communication information on a daily basis from all over this planet. And interact with the immensity of the suffering all around. And so, by cultivating more than one plane of consciousness, by witnessing and by acknowledging the laws of this universe. So, when I arrive at a perceptual vantage point where I look at a leaf or a drop of water or stars and planets and see the oneness of existence, I do begin to see the exquisite interrelationship of phenomena. I can find universal law in each field I examine: physics, astronomy, music, genetics, mathematics, chemistry. And from that point of view of oneness, I am filled with awe at the magnificence of how it all works. I also realize that suffering is part of the way it all works. Now, the story goes, Siddhartha, prince in a gilded castle, palace, went out on his own to see the people outside the walls. So after the Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, he expounded to his new disciples that came to be known as the Four Noble Truths. The first Noble Truth says that all existence is characterized by suffering. Birth has in it suffering. Death has in it suffering. Old age has in it suffering. And sickness has in it suffering. Not getting what you want has in it suffering. Getting what you don't want has in it suffering. Even getting what you do want or not getting what you don't want involves suffering, because both are in time. Anything in time is impermanent. And as Jesus said, lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt. So as long as you are caught up in time, there is suffering. Now, the second and third Noble Truths deal with the causes of suffering, which are the clinging of mind to attractions and aversions, and to a false sense of self. The fourth Noble Truth lays out the eightfold path to get free of suffering. And remember, Buddha is not a name of a being. It is a definition of one who has discovered that they are enlightened. So you may look at it as you see it. We have three vantage points, or planes of consciousness from which we live. The first is the ego, the plane of personality. The second is our individual soul, part of which is the witness consciousness. The third is the mystic part of us. Quakers call it the still, small voice within, or the inner light. Hindu call it the Arman, or the Atman. We can also think of it as the One. Each of us has all three of these channels. They are all here simultaneously. But how you experience reality depends on which one your awareness is tuned to. When you dwell deep in the intuitive self, you are on the soul plane. If you follow that awareness and go in and in and in, you will come to God awareness, to the Atman. That sense, that same awareness is in you and in me. God consciousness is the same in all of us. While we think we are our incarnation, our soul witnesses it all and ultimately connects us to the universal God consciousness that dwells within each of us. Now, it depends, different cycles in our lives, this life. Some of us may see ourselves as a soul who has taken incarnation in a body, right? And so while your ego thought you were a person with say you had some kind of an ailment or something, let's just say a stroke, that suffering pushed you into your soul, which witnesses or watches the incarnation. Much less painful to watch than to have it. All of this, everything, is based, this whole game is based on faith. Faith comes through grace. In the Bible, Apostle Paul said, "For it is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God. Not by works, so that no one can boast." When the faith is strong enough, it is sufficient just to be. Without faith, the existential fears and uncertainties that we all have dominate. When you have faith, you have no fear. If you don't have faith, you fear. Think about that. So when you fear, you don't have faith. Pretty simple. It's like when you're interacting with something or you're experiencing something and you experience fear. You immediately know to yourself, you say, if I'm experiencing fear, it means that I have no faith. So, of course, we have that childlike curiosity. So you say to ourselves, why am I doing that? Why is that? Is that habit? When any of us fear, we do not have faith. And when we do not fear, when you're not in a fearful state, you have faith. So some people will experience things. And what good is faith? Faith in what? Our faith is in the one. Not neighbor, friend, partner, whatever. Okay, in the one. Everything leads to the one. Faith in the one. Oneness is a state of being. This is the state where, as the great South Indian saint Ramana Maharishi said, God, Guru, and Self are one. He simply held up one finger and said, Sub Ek. It's all one, which means it's all one. Faith is the reflection of that oneness in the mirror of your soul. Faith is the way you connect to that universal truth of oneness. Faith and love are intimately entwined. Without devotion, there is no faith. Without faith, there is no devotion. And faith is not a belief. Beliefs are in the head. Faith is in the heart. Faith comes from within you. You cultivate it by opening your spiritual heart and quieting your mind until you feel your identity with your deeper self. That opening to the deeper self, when you have quieted your mind, comes through grace. The qualities of that self are peace, joy, compassion, wisdom, and love. It's all perfect. You come to trust the way a being is in the universe. It's like knowing somebody who lives a little farther up the mountain and can see farther than you can. The view from there is perfection. Not perfection as something to be achieved, but perfection in what is. Don't you see it's all perfect? The art of life is to stay wide open and be vulnerable. Yet at the same time, to sit with the mystery and the awe and with the unbearable pain. To just be with it all. Be here now. Here and now has within it a great richness that is just enough. If someone were to ask you, are you happy? You stop and look inside. Yes, I'm happy. Are you sad? Yes, I'm sad. Answering those questions, you realize that all of those feelings are present. Imagine the richness of a moment in which everything is present. The pain of a broken heart. The joy of a new mother holding her baby. The exquisiteness of a rose in bloom. The grief of losing a loved one. This moment has all of that. It is living truth. The saving grace is being able to witness suffering from the perspective of the soul. Another way to say it is that saving grace is having faith, living in the fullness of the moment with joy and suffering, witnessing it in all its perfection. Our hearts still go out to those who are suffering. Now, when we live in the moment, we are not in time. When you think, I am a retired being, I've retired from my role, you are looking back at your life. It's retrospective. It's life in the rearview mirror. When you're young, you might be thinking, I have my whole life ahead of me. This is what I'll do later. That kind of thinking is called time binding. It causes us to focus on the past or the future and to worry about what comes next. Getting caught up in memories of the past or worrying about the future is a form of self-imposed suffering. Either retirement or youth can be seen as moving on, a time for something different, something new. Start fresh. It's a new moment. Aging is not a culmination. Youth isn't preparation for later. This isn't the end of the line or the beginning. Now isn't a time to look back or plan ahead. It's time to just be present. The present is timeless. Being in the moment, just being here with what is ageless, is eternal. It is extraordinary how near we are to our deeper being. It's just a thought away. And the thoughts that take us away from it create so much suffering The thought, I am this body, causes suffering. I might think, well, my body used to be able to do this. My hair didn't used to be gray. I used to be stronger. I used to be thinner. I used to be. Those thoughts cause suffering because the body is what it is. We do everything we can to stay safe and healthy, but illness, age, and accidents still affect us. No one has the power even to keep their own body safe. This body is in time, but we are just here in this moment. Now, if you've had the grace to touch living spirit in your lifetime, you know it can be a challenge to translate it into action in this world. To put it another way, now that you know that home is where the heart is, how do you live your life in such a way as to deepen your spiritual connection? Now, there's many paths of prayer, study, of redirecting bodily energies in hatha yoga, of devotional singing and kirtan. Many of us are strongly drawn to a path of service, kind of service designed to alleviate the suffering of our fellow beings, service in deep harmony with the way of things, the Dharma. When it is guided by the heart, such service feels like making love with God. Think of Mother Teresa seeing her beloved Jesus in all his distressing disguises. Giving and receiving, depending on how they're done, can nourish people on both ends. Those who receive can help others feel graced and deeply, eternally loved to have the opportunity to serve. The art of receiving is a mindset that says, I am a soul, you are a soul. We come together. And what roles we play is kind of irrelevant. Likewise, in serving, what you truly offer another being is your own being. This is how true healing occurs. Your open heart allows the other being's heart to open. Then caregiving becomes a gift for everybody involved. Now, it's interesting because many philosophies, many things through our lifetimes that we have experienced aren't going to be that way. But it is phenomenal that we've had the opportunity to review and experience all of it. Getting old, for example, will not be a front and center thing on this planet. Now, it can be caused right now. Getting old, for example, it can be a cause for more suffering. Or it can be a state of grace. People who have been fiercely independent say, I hate being independent, right? I hate being dependent. On the other hand, I see people who are old and frail and need to be taken care of, but who are not at odds with themselves. They are so graceful and loving in their dependency that everybody who is taking care of them ends up feeling taken care of too. We have so much ability just on our little finger. But we don't know we do. You've ever said, how can we help? Or you've ever said, how can I help? Or how can we help? We often feel helpless in the face of suffering, especially the suffering of those close to us. And we wonder how we can help. Simple acts of kindness are so meaningful, like the quiet moments between people taking loving care of one another, or the support and kindness of friends and family expressing concern, offering help, prayers, and food. Food can be so much more than physical nourishment. Or perhaps you offer a flower from your garden, or just listen to the fears and feelings of someone who is suffering so they know they are not alone. Sometimes just being there with an open heart and a presence grounded in peace and serenity is enough. There are reminders of grace that happen when you least expect them. Reminders that nourish the soul. Being the unbearable is the deepest root of compassion in this world. When you bear what you think you cannot bear, who you think you are dies. You become compassion. You do not have compassion. You are compassion. True compassion goes beyond empathy to being with the experience of another. You become an instrument of compassion. Your own suffering, be it loss, failure, grief, or physical pain, hurts like hell. Your heart may be broken, and yet here you are. You may have had an experience of suffering that burned deep into you, created a different quality of your being. You see the way that suffering forced your awakening. It's challenging, hard to imagine a spiritual curriculum in which Suffering 101 is not part of the course for becoming a full human being. It's a fierce teaching. Part of that teaching is beginning to see through or give up, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. The pattern of desire and aversion that fastens you so intimately to Maya, the illusion of separation. Something happens when you stop trying so hard to avoid suffering. When you wish it were different, you can't see how it is. There's a line in the Tao Te Ching that says, truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. As you clear the mist of desire from your mirror, you start to reflect things as they are. As you dwell more in loving awareness and see things as they truly are, you begin to expand beyond the boundaries of your separateness. You start to experience the outer world in a new way. So that instead of being in relationship to someone else, you become them. At that moment, the suffering of the universe is inside of you, not outside. True compassion arises out of the plane of consciousness, where I am you, where you and I are one. May all beings be free from danger. May all beings be free from mental suffering. May all beings be free from physical suffering. May all beings know peace. Om. I'll join you in the meditation. I'll return to close us out. Take an easy and slow breath in through the nose, and an easy and slow breath out from the mouth. Remain still, relaxed into your body, focused on your breath rising and falling. Even though you might not think so, here are the reasons why you are the perfect human. You are emotionally intelligent and have great communication skills. You're attentive to others, a fantastic listener. You're respectful, honest, and completely trustworthy. People say your compassion flows endlessly from the heart of your soul. You're a deeply passionate lover, and your generosity and selflessness go beyond the ability of most humans. You are super affectionate. You're filled with curiosity and can have the most playful energy. You are patient, kind, and understanding, as well as committed to growth and change. Since you have already embraced these qualities for many years, you could be the most illuminated lover on the spiritual path. We all bow down to you. Yes, you contain the qualities everyone has been searching for their entire lives. It's time to accept the facts are in. Deep inside you is the most beautiful embodiment of love that anyone has met. So thank you for being born, as you make this world a much happier place. Now, I guess there's not much to do but fully enjoy this amazing being you truly are. Take this with you for the rest of the day into the evening and night the following morning. We will return here tonight after 9:15 p.m. Eastern to continue our Time for Change call. And Thursday, December 5th, after 3:15 p.m. Eastern to continue our Global Guided Meditation call. Be gentle, kind, generous, and humble with yourself at all times. Be in the highest of the highest high, deepest of the deepest, deepest, purest of the purest, purest, eternal gratitude at all times, no matter what's going on out there or within you. Open your heart and allow the magic to flow in.